There's still at least one local elite recruit that wants to play for USC, and oh yeah, F UCLA.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Colkin, and thank you for making a Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. I don't care where you download this podcast, it's going to be free. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, click that like button, smash that thumbs up, hit that bell notification, leave a comment. All that helps the show continue to grow. You can get into the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers, that's you. You can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's Rivalry Week versus UCLA, and as you know, you can end any thought, any sentence with FUCLA, and it works. It makes sense. It makes the clear, concise message to the point. Everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. For example, USC beat Nebraska with a new starting quarterback. They have a 1,000-yard rusher. They secured one of the top quarterback prospects in the country, and FUCLA. See, it all works. Less than 24 hours after Lincoln Riley's quarterback change in 2024, replacing Miller Moss with Jaden Mayaba as USC's new starter quarterback, he made another quarterback change. Look, I told you this was about to happen. I mean, this is why you listen to the show every day. I keep you updated. If you want, we can go back to the spring when USC was holding spring camp. Husan Longstreet, the local 5-star elite quarterback, he's no longer committed to Texas A&M. And that means that Julian Lewis is no longer committed to USC. Yeah, there was a switch. It happened. Husan made it official. He flipped. He's going to be a Trojan in the class of 2025. A lot of credit for this happening. It goes to Coach Luke Heward, USC's quarterback coach. Again, he deserves big time props for getting this commitment to happen. He played a vital role in Longstreet getting on campus back in the spring, and then especially when USC wasn't even on his final schools list. So the fact that he was able to convince him to, hey, come out to spring practice. I know it starts at 5:30 a.m. and I know you're planning to commit in a few days. Nevertheless, give me some of your time. So he showed up. He's still committed to Texas A&M, but that did not detour USC or the coaching staff. Coach Luke, he stayed in contact throughout the summer. Again, and this was after he was committed to Texas A&M. He just kept grinding. He kept letting him know, we want you at USC. And Husan has actually known Coach Heward for a few years now. I mean, this isn't like a new relationship that he's been trying to forge. They're not strangers. This is what Husan said after he committed. I've always had a relationship with Coach Heward since I was at Inglewood High School back as a ninth grader. The relationships have already built. I feel real confident in the coaching staff. So before USC beat Nebraska this past Saturday afternoon, Luke Heward checked out Husan Longstreet playing in a Friday night playoff game against Mission Viejo. Husan said, you know what? I'm going to return the favor. I'm going to come to the game Saturday when you guys play Nebraska. So Coach Heward, Coach Riley, they got the guy they really, really wanted was watching this game. And oh, by the way, for those of you who live and die by their recruiting star rankings, those star systems, Longstreet is actually ranked 13 spots ahead of Juju, and he's also a local kid. That means a lot. So once he went public, deciding he was going to flip, he'd rather stay home, he'd rather play for Lincoln Riley. This is what he had to say. what made USC right for me is what Coach Riley has done in the past. He has 5 quarterbacks starting in the NFL right now and 4 that won the Heisman. It's kind of hard to turn down something that special. The one thing they stress is how I am as a person and my leadership. They love my arm strength, but they said my character is what stands out for them the most. There's a sense of pride about USC, so that's huge also. A lot of my family is from the South, but I grew up out here. End quote. That last part. I mean, he talked about the word pride. He has pride being being the guy in USC's backyard and USC wanting him. I really hope today's generation still keeps that pride part going strong, keeps that feeling alive. Because there's times I really get a sense that, at least in Southern California, there's a me first mentality culture going on, and I don't know. It's just something I sense. The more I hear these young men talk, these kids talk, and the way I see them kind of abusing the NIL process right now, it's definitely a me first mentality. But we'll see how that changes. We'll see what happens. Maybe Longstreet staying home and playing for USC kind of stems the tide of the way things are going. We'll find out. So he also talked about the direction of USC's program. He's really psyched about it. Quote, I feel like the sky's the limit for this recruiting class. You have Corey Sims, Tanuk Hines, so many great receivers, Jerome Miles. I feel like we can do big things here and feel like a national championship is coming. End quote. You like that. You like somebody who's looking to building the class, playing for a championship. Something else that I thought was really important about this commitment from a playing time perspective. Husan has a good sense now of what the quarterback timeline will be, especially with Moss being replaced by Jaden Mayaba. So you have Jaden Mayaba, he's going to finish out this year as USC starter, more than likely. And then next year as well, he will be the front runner to be the starter. And then Longstreet can relax and get comfortable in that backup role, learn the offense, get bigger, get stronger, use the weight room, use those leadership qualities to build that camaraderie with the guys that he came in with, as well as the older guys that are already on the roster. Get this thing going in the locker room. So he knows where he stands. You've got Jaden Mayaba, then it's him, then assuming him, and then looking ahead past Husan, you've got Ryder Lyons, who is going to eventually commit to USC. He's part of the class of 2026, but it sets it perfectly because he is not expected to be on campus until 2027 after he takes his 1-year LDS mission. So in that scenario, there would likely be a 1-year development program set up, for Husan. That way he can take over the quarterback duties once Jaden moves on to the NFL. And I think, you know what, USC fans? You should be really pumped up about this. I think Husan Longstreet is a better quarterback than Julian Lewis. I don't care what the ranking says. I've been saying this for a while now. His talent is, first of all, his talent is still growing. I'm not going to say that Julian has reached his ceiling, but Husan hasn't even come close to reaching his. I mean, he hasn't been training to play quarterback since he was 10 years old. There's a lot of those guys out there, but he's developed into an elite high school quarterback. He's learned how to play quarterback in Matt Logan's system at Centennial High School, who, if you're not familiar with, he also helped develop CJ Stroud, who went on to Ohio State. USC ignored him. And now he's the starter for the Houston Texans, having a really good career. I see a little bit of Husan Longstreet in CJ Stroud's game. I see a little bit of CJ Stroud in Husan's game, I guess is the better way to say it. And I think the most important thing about this move is that USC moved on from Lewis. They were getting tired. Look, you sensed my frustration when I was talking about it. They were getting tired of Juju constantly taking trips to schools, and especially this late into the recruiting process. We're just a couple of weeks away from the early signing period starting. So USC makes the first move. It wasn't that long afterward that Juju had made his decommitment. This was all about timing. So again, from an optics perspective, I think it was really, really important for USC to be proactive and not reactive. It might seem petty, minute, but it's not. It really isn't. This is USC being in control, and again, not allowing, oh, we lost a quarterback and we got to go find another one. They've actually been working on this for a while. And I know look, USC wasn't done winning. So you got Husan Longstreet, you got the win against Nebraska. Guess what? Everyone's focusing in on this big commitment, this quarterback flip, sucking up all the oxygen in the room. Leave some air for guy's name is Cash Jacobson. I mentioned him real briefly last week. He's a defensive line prospect from the state of Oklahoma. I mentioned him when I was talking about guys who were taking their visits this past weekend, for the game against Nebraska. He said he wanted to make a decision ahead of the early signing period. Well, he did. The 6'4", 250-pound defensive lineman took his official visit. He was there with Jakeem Stewart, Toby Hastrup, USC commit Jaden Perlott, and athlete James Johnson. Well, I'm recording the show on Sunday. You're watching this first thing Monday. Late Sunday afternoon, early Sunday evening, USC has another commitment. Husan Longstreet, Cash Jacobson, the defensive lineman from Oklahoma. And USC's coaching staff can say, hey, we out-recruited Oklahoma for 2 defensive linemen in this cycle. Don't forget Floyd Boucard. Oh, who, by the way, he was also at the game Saturday against Nebraska. He's huge. He's massive. Big, big young man. USC's defense is going to look good going forward. The recruiting has really stepped up. The big news here, Husan Longstreet. He's a Trojan. He's going to be a Trojan. And I think USC has the best quarterback prospect in the 2025 recruiting cycle. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all those all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations. Sometimes the games go to overtime. Being a Trojan fan this season, it's taking a lot of energy, which is why they created Stand the Fan, a 5-hour energy shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans just like us. It's for the fans who are the first in the parking lot and who are the last to leave. Trust me, I see you guys. I am that guy. I used to be that guy. But I am one of the last to leave the stadium. I can tell you that. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. Not only did USC beat Nebraska 20-20, didn't it look like they had fun doing it? I had fun watching it. I already mentioned how they won on the field. They won on the recruiting front. They forced 2 flips. Husan Longstreet, Julian Lewis. That's big news. But I would say USC's football program had a pretty good weekend. Overall, you had the recruiting wins, you had the win on the field. But watching USC win with their defense, that was also fun. So you had new starting quarterback, Jade Mayava. USC got a 1,000-yard rusher, Woody Marks. Congratulations. They won a one-possession game. Congratulations, Trojans. And the defense, they stepped up. They made plays to help the offense. I talked about Jaden's turnovers in the instant reaction show. Just bring it up real quick again. Those 2 turnovers that he had, they turned into 10 points for Nebraska. You had the pick 6, and then the fumble. Obviously, they kicked the field goal after that. They were held to a field goal because USC's defense bowed up. But it could have been worse if USC's defense wasn't doing their thing. Don't forget, Jalen Smith had that big interception. Greedy Vance had he called game. He had the game ender in the end zone that took away Nebraska's any last-ditch hope of, scoring the touchdown and going for 2 to tie it up. USC as a team, they gave up 20 points to Nebraska. 20 as a team. But again, the defense itself only gave up 10. Well, I guess you'd say they gave up 13, but they had their backs up against the wall after following the fumble. Nevertheless, they played a really good game. And you consider the fact that Nebraska was struggling coming in. They made sure Nebraska maintained struggling leaving LA. Remember, they had 58 points combined in their previous 4 games. So USC's defense actually did a little bit better than maybe people anticipated. What I also kind of focused in on was USC's defensive front. Up front, it looks like they're going with the youth movement. Here's some snap counts just of the defensive line. I'm not going to go over the entire snap count. Not in this episode, not in this show. Guess who had the most on the defensive line? Go ahead, guess. Well, it was Devin Tompkins, 40 snaps. Cameron Fountain, 39. Gavin Meyer, 35. Nate Clifton, 34. Solomon Tuliapupu, 28. Sam Green at 22. Jamil Muhammad, 17. Elijah Hughes, 16. Kobe Pepe, 14. Jude Abasari, 11. Now, Coach Riley did mention after the game that the locker room's been dealing with the flu, so that did affect some of these snap counts for some players. But USC's starting defensive line in this game, Sam Green, Devin Tompkins, Nate Clifton, Cameron Fountain. Yeah, Nate Clifton, really the only veteran out there. These were both first career starts for Green and Fountain. Fountain's 39 snaps are the most that he's played in any game this season. And then Elijah Hughes, I'd mentioned, his reps have been increasing as the season's gone along. He made his presence felt against Nebraska. What I also liked was Antonlynn. He adapted. He was using the players that he loves versatility with his guys up front. So the guys he kept them in the game when it called for it. He went bigger. So there was times where Devin Tompkins actually moved from the inside to the outside, played some defensive end. Let me get a sip of water here. So of his 40 snaps, he took 23 playing on the outside rather than playing inside. That's his versatility. Not only his, obviously the staff's confidence in his production has shown because Devin is now playing with a ton of confidence. That's what happens. You get out on the field, you see yourself making plays, all of a sudden you're thinking, all right, I can do that. Now let me try this. And you're starting to see his development. There's still, I know I'm giving some shine to the defensive line. They still need to improve big time getting to the quarterback. I'm talking about the defensive line specifically right now. They only had 7 quarterback pressures against Dylan Raiola. And And that's coming one game after they had 14 against Washington on the road. And then before that, when they hosted Rutgers, they were able to get to the quarterback or at least pressure him 36 times. So only to do it 7 times, that's a significant drop off when you're playing at home. Now, I think part of that was due to the scheme. Coach Lynn doesn't call a lot of blitzing. The other issue is you need to get more production from SC's edge players. I know Braylon Shelby missed this past game with an undisclosed injury, but I'm going to throw it out there. I think at this point of his career, shouldn't he be producing more? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Hit me up. Let me know in the comment section. But look, the numbers are what they are. And USC struggles to get pressure on the quarterbacks. That's who they are this year. Against Nebraska, they did get the sack from Elijah Hughes. They got a little bit of help on that play when Nebraska's offensive line looked a little discombobulated. Not sure they were quite set up, ready to play. Didn't look like everybody was on the same snap count. And then you also had a sack from Solomon. Those were really the only 2 tackles for loss by the defensive line. That's not enough. You need more than that. Keep in mind, granted, I could say they had one more, but it still wouldn't have been enough. Cameron Fountain had one, but that got, I guess it got killed when Jade Abasiri was called for that illegal hands to the face. It was a legitimate call, but it looked great. I mean, Cameron Fountain was in there like that, had the guy, on his butt real fast. Whatever. 2, 3. You need to have, I would think, at least 7 to 10 pressures per game from the defensive line alone. I think that number should be closer to 10. Staying with the defense, though, I thought the linebackers played a really solid game. Mason Cobb probably had one of his better games this season. He missed another interception opportunity, but he did lead the team with 9 tackles. 7 of those were by himself. If USC brings this defensive energy these next 2 weeks against their rivals, they're going to be okay. We'll talk about Notre Dame in a couple weeks, but we need to start talking about UCLA week. We're going to do that next. Let's get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you can bet $5. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and you can do it all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play, and maybe you want to place another bet on a game. You can do that at FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com. Join today. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. When was the last time you went to any live event? Did you go to the USC game this past weekend against Nebraska? Have you been to Galen Center to watch a basketball game, men or women? Been to a comedy show? Are you going to go watch USC versus UCLA? You need to use Game Time. Game Time has this feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to your favorite live event really easy. And with Game Time, you're going to know what the view from your seat looks like before you check out. And with Game Time, you're going to get the best price because Game Time guarantees the best price. If you find a ticket in the same section of row for less, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. There's no risk involved here. So what are you worried about? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So now USC gets to carry all this fun momentum. They're winning on the field at home. They're winning the recruiting battles. And now they get to go to the Rose Bowl and take on UCLA. UCLA. It's rivalry week. I think USC opened as a 6-point favorite over the Bruins. UCLA is coming off a loss this past weekend. They lost on the road in Seattle to the Huskies. By the way, did anybody notice Washington hosted both LA schools this year? I know that's a scheduling quirk that typically doesn't happen. It did this year. Before USC beat Nebraska, I really wasn't feeling all that great about USC's chances against either rival, especially UCLA's defense. Look, I hate giving them props. It forces bile to come up into my esophagus. But their run defense is pretty damn good. You got to give them credit where credit's due. There's not a significant drop-off since Antonlynn left. UCLA's defense allows just 100 yards per contest on the ground. Where you can hurt UCLA is through the air. They rank 102nd in the country, giving up 245 yards per game passing. So if Jaden Maiava plays like he did against Nebraska, and he's even more good than lucky like he was, then I think USC is going to spank the crap out of UCLA. I mean, right now, the Trojans' run game is just oozing with confidence. Woody went for 146 yards against Nebraska's run defense, which is really good. And I think, and I'm hoping Lincoln Riley pulls out last year's tape, shows it to the team, says, do not show up playing like this, because last year it looked like USC didn't even want to play that game. They were embarrassed at home, 38-20. Heading into that contest, UCLA had scored just 45 points in their previous 3 games combined. After that game, Lincoln Riley said, very, very disappointing. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I told the guys in the locker room, I've clearly not done a good enough job in the second half of the season getting this team ready to go. We just didn't play good enough in any way, end quote. That was bad enough. What made it even worse after that game, USC's team leader, Caleb Williams, he showed zero accountability afterward. He didn't want to talk to the media. Can't have that. That's unacceptable. So while last year sucked, and USC needs to use that to build off of, put that chip on their shoulder, so to speak, it still wasn't as bad as what happened 2 years before that. When Dorian Thompson-Robinson, remember when he was signing autographs in the Coliseum during the game? He felt comfortable enough to do that because UCLA won 62-33. It was embarrassing. USC needs to put an ass whooping on the Bruins this week. I mean, take out some serious frustrations that they've dealt with this year. All those close one-possession losses, yeah. Every single one of those needs to come out in this game. I don't care if it's 50-0. I don't care if it's 66-10. USC needs to win this game big time. I don't want to see any more Bruins making the public school enemy list. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I don't need to see another player on USC's roster that you've never heard of before have a John Barnes type of performance. Some unnamed Bruin. I don't want to watch Ethan Garbers have another game of his life like he did last year. I do not want to see another Cade McNown make my life miserable. Did that for 4 years straight. And heaven forbid, I don't care who's playing quarterback, assuming it's going to be Jaden Maiava, I do not need to see another Eric McNeil moment. You know what I'm talking about, USC fans? So, what evil Bruin villain am I missing? Who did I leave off? Who is your favorite Bruin to hate? I mean, there's a lot of them. I could probably rattle off a whole bunch more, but I'm running out of time on the show. And do not think for a second that this is not Deshaun Foster's Super Bowl moment. I'm going to be talking about this game all week long. Do not forget, this is rivalry week. This is USC versus UCLA. For your next lesson, check out Locked On College Football, the podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin, he'll talk to you about everything in college football. He'll talk about USC. He'll talk about everything. I'll be back with another episode of Locked On USC tomorrow. That's what we do. We're going to be talking about the USC-UCLA game. We're going to be talking about recruiting. We're going to see maybe USC got another player. We're going to talk about Jade Mayaba. We're talking about a lot of stuff this week. So make sure you're tuning in to Locked On USC. Until then, everyone, you know what to do.